I died for 11 seconds. It's a strange thing dying, you don't feel the drama of it. There's no swelling music, no flash of memories, just silence. Stillness, like the universe hit pause. When I came back, the hospital lights were blinding. I blinked slowly, trying to remember who I was, where I was. A nurse leaned over me, his name tag said Daniel. He looked kind, but startled, like I wasn't supposed to wake up. "You made it," he said, almost whispering. "Would you like to call your family?" He didn't know, of course he didn't. There was a note next to my bed, placed neatly beside a jug of water and an unopened pudding cup. Gone for 12 days. "Hope you're better when we get back." That was it. 12 words to explain their absence. 12 days while I hovered between life and death. They were in Hawaii, Maui to be exact. A vacation they'd booked months ago, they'd said, non-refundable. Just bad timing, but I knew better, they hadn't even called. So I stayed silent, I didn't scream, I didn't beg. I lay there in my gown, counting ceiling tiles and learning how to breathe without machines. I healed in silence. Alone. And as my body mended, something else began to grow inside me. Not bitterness, not yet, something colder, cleaner, clarity. By the time I could walk without help, I had already made the decision. I wasn't going to stay, not in that house. Not in that role, not in that life they had tried to shrink me into. I had survived death, and somehow that gave me permission to live. Really live, so I waited, quietly, carefully, and then I vanished. By the time they landed back on American soil, I was already gone. The days in the ICU were a strange blur of light and sound and absence. I remember the sound of machines more than I remember people. I remember the taste of dry air and the feel of bandages on my skin. I remember trying to ask for water, but my voice cracked and disappeared before it reached anyone's ears. Daniel, the nurse, was kind. He always adjusted my pillows gently, always smiled with his eyes even when the rest of the hospital felt like a spinning machine. One night I heard him talking on the phone near my bed. I wasn't supposed to hear it. "Yes, ma'am. She's stabilized, she's conscious now. Would you like to speak to her?" A pause. "Okay, got it, just thought you'd want to know." He didn't realize my eyes were open. He didn't realize those words had broken something inside me that would never quite mend the same again. My own daughter, my child, had refused to take the call. Not "she's busy," not "she's traveling." Just no, that was the moment I stopped hoping. 8 days, I stayed in that ICU for 8 days. No visitors, no flowers. No check-in calls, not even a "how are you?" from the people I had once lived my entire life for. When I was discharged, Daniel wheeled me out to the hospital entrance. He seemed almost ashamed. "You'll be okay," he said, his voice soft. "You're strong." I nodded. What else could I do? There was no one waiting for me at the doors, no one to catch me if I stumbled. The hospital van dropped me off at my house, the one with the green shutters and the oak tree in front. I tried to use the spare key hidden in the ceramic frog by the steps. It was gone. I sat on the front porch for 20 minutes. Not crying, just sitting, breathing, watching the wind in the trees. Eventually, the door opened. It wasn't Kiera, it wasn't Thomas, it wasn't even a neighbor, it was Sean, my son-in-law. Holding a Starbucks cup and blinking at me like he'd seen a ghost. "Oh, we thought you'd be back tomorrow," he stammered. I stepped inside, and immediately I knew the house was different. The couch had been moved. The walls were half painted in a trendy beige. My wedding photos had been taken down and stacked in a dusty box in the corner. On the dining table was a flyer. "Charming Southern home ideal for young families. My home, my life for sale." I hadn't signed anything, I hadn't agreed to this. In the kitchen, I found a folder open and messy, like someone had just been rifling through it. Inside, power of attorney paperwork, signed by me, dated 2 years ago. Back when I had knee surgery, they had said it was just in case, a precaution. I was groggy from pain meds, and Kiera had told me it was for hospital insurance. Now I realized what they had done. They had used that paper while I was unconscious to start clearing me out. I sank to the floor. My legs wouldn't hold me. I wasn't just an afterthought to them. I was an inconvenience. A burden to be managed, a problem to be solved. And they were solving it. I found Thomas' old tablet plugged in near the pantry. I don't know why I picked it up. Maybe I needed answers. Maybe I needed proof. It was still logged into Kiera's messages. And that's when I saw it. "House goes on MLS Monday. If she's not home yet, we'll start the assisted living intake." Let's be honest, Mom was never good at boundaries. The words stung like ice water down my spine. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, had written them. They weren't waiting for me to recover. They weren't preparing to help me. They were preparing to remove me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood up, opened the pantry, and pulled out the shoebox where I kept my emergency cash. Then I grabbed my password ledger, the one I started in 1999 with a ballpoint pen and ruled notebook paper. Because if they thought I was going to lie down and let them erase me from my own life, they had forgotten who raised them. The next morning, I waited. I waited until Sean left the house, off to whatever errand he'd cooked up to avoid spending time with the mother-in-law they were actively disposing of. When the door shut behind him, I moved quietly down the hallway past the bedroom that used to be called guest room. Now it was a staging area. Half of my clothes were stacked on the bed, the other half were shoved into donation bags. My dresser drawers were empty. They hadn't even asked me what I wanted to keep. It was like they'd already decided I was gone, like I had no say in the remnants of my own existence. I picked up the tablet again. I don't know what I was looking for, maybe a message, maybe some justification. I found neither. What I did find was this: once Mom's house sells, we'll have room to breathe. Room to breathe from me. From the woman who worked 2 jobs when their father died. The woman who paid their rent, watched their kids every summer for free, covered the business debts when Sean's company crumbled. Room to breathe from the person who never asked for anything except to be remembered. I sat at the kitchen table, folder of legal betrayal still in front of me, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely disposable. But not powerless. I called Henry Langston, my former student turned attorney. He was the kind of man who never forgot the people who helped him rise. I told him everything. He didn't interrupt, just listened. Then he said, "You're not the first, Eliza, but we can make sure you're the last in your family who ever gets treated this way." He moved fast. Within 48 hours, we filed to revoke the power of attorney. Legally, they had no right to sell my house, not without explicit consent, which I had never given. The paperwork they used, based on a drugged signature from a different surgery for a different purpose. Invalid. And suddenly, the scales tipped. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was in control. I relisted the house under my name, but I didn't do it to keep it. I did it to empty it before they did. I changed the locks. The first time Sean came by, I spoke through the doorbell camera. "Your tools are in the garage. You have 20 minutes to get them before I donate them." He didn't argue. He didn't ask to come inside. He just picked them up and left the gate open behind him. Like a coward, I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not Henry, not my neighbors, not even the woman at the bank when I closed every account they had access to. I opened a new one under a new name, Nora Ellis, using my grandmother's maiden name. I sold everything except the photos I loved, my late husband's watch, and a box of drawings from my grandkids, back when they still called me Nana and meant it. The house sold in 11 days. Cash buyer, no questions asked. By the time the funds hit my new account, I was already packing 2 duffel bags, 1 car, and a letter, 2 actually. I wrote one for each of my daughters, no blame. No bitterness, just this: "You taught me who you really are, thank you for the education." I left the letters on the counter, unplugged the fridge, took the spare key from the ceramic frog and snapped it in half. By sunrise, I was on the highway heading north. No GPS, no final destination, just the road and the knowing that no one was looking for me because they weren't scared I was gone. They were relieved, until they realized what it meant. I crossed the main state line with a half tank of gas, 3 diner coffees in my system, and a peace I hadn't felt in decades. When I pulled into Elkport, I saw the sign. Friendliest town in Maine, home of the state's coziest library. That was all I needed. I checked into a roadside motel, paid cash. When they asked for a name, I smiled and said, "Nora Ellis, retired librarian from Virginia, widowed. No children." The lie slid out easily, like it had been waiting inside me for years, just needing permission to exist. I found a trailer for rent behind a bait shop, fully furnished. No lease required if I paid in cash. Jim, the landlord, asked only one question: "You smoke?" "No," I said. "Good." Last lady lit her curtains on fire. That was it. No paperwork, no background check, just a handshake and a worn-out set of keys. I bought groceries from the corner market, signed up for a library card, started volunteering 2 days a week shelving books. Within 10 days, I was Miss Nora. The quiet lady with soft hands and a southern voice who remembered birthdays and never asked too many questions. And for the first time in years, I was invisible, and I loved it. That's when I met Grace. 27, single mom, working 2 jobs and raising a daughter named Lily. Grace smiled like someone who'd forgotten how, but still tried anyway. Lily was 6, curious and bright. She took to me like I was a puzzle piece she'd been missing. Within 2 weeks, she was calling me Nana Nora. I didn't correct her. Grace needed help. I had time. It was simple. She worked nights at the diner. I watched Lily, read to her, helped with homework. Made grilled cheese when she was too tired to cook. They needed someone steady, and I needed someone to need me without expectations, without manipulation, without the burden of blood ties. The days passed gently, mornings at the library. Afternoons with Lily, evenings on the trailer steps, watching fireflies and sipping chamomile tea. No cameras, no accusations, no unspoken debts, just quiet. And for the first time, it didn't feel like hiding. It felt like healing. The trailer behind the bait shop was small. Just 1 bedroom, a kitchenette, and a bathroom where the hot water took its time. But it was mine, entirely mine. I filled it with thrifted quilts and dollar store candles. Grace gave me a mug that said "World's Okayest Nana," and Lily drew a picture of the 3 of us holding hands in front of a pink house. I pinned it to the wall above my bed with Scotch tape. No one knew my real name. No one knew what I'd left behind, and I didn't miss a single thing about the life I'd walked away from. Some nights I'd still wake up gasping, not from nightmares but from the fear that someone would knock on the door and call me by the name I no longer claimed. Eliza, the mother they forgot. The woman they buried in legal documents and lies. But in Elkport I wasn't Eliza. I was Nora, just Nora, and Nora didn't owe anyone a thing. Lily's 7th birthday came faster than expected. Grace asked if I'd help with the decorations. We baked cupcakes in my tiny oven, pink frosting, rainbow sprinkles. I showed Lily how to pipe her name with shaky icing. The party was simple. Streamers from the dollar store, paper plates, store-bought pizza, and folding tables in the local VFW hall. But to Lily, it was magic. "Sit next to me, Nana," she said as she opened her gifts. Someone handed me a party hat and I wore it without thinking. Grace's friend filmed a short video for Instagram, just Lily tearing open a box of books. Nothing special. Except I was in the frame the entire time, smiling, handing Lily each package, steady and kind. And 3 days later, that moment would find its way back to the world I thought I'd left behind. Grace burst into the library like a thunderstorm. Her phone shook in her hand. "Nora, you need to see this." I took the phone. It was the video, but now it had been reposted. Captioned, "Found HER. Grandma Ghost is alive and well in Maine." Someone had stitched the birthday clip with news footage from the Charleston scandal. My old face, pale and tired in a hospital bed, cross-faded into my smiling self at the party. The comments were wild. Legend. "She's living her best life." "This woman escaped the Matrix." But others were cruel. "She abandoned her family." "No excuse for cutting off your kids." "Fake stroke to get revenge." And worst of all, they'd tagged the town. I sat behind the return desk, heart pounding like it had in that ICU bed. For a moment, I thought I might pass out. My skin prickled, cold and hot all at once. Grace knelt beside me, gripping my hand. "What's going on?" she whispered. I looked into her eyes, honest, tired, unflinching, and told the truth. "My name's not Nora," I said. "It's Eliza." She didn't flinch, didn't back away. She just nodded and asked, "So what do we do now?" That's when I knew I couldn't hide forever, but I didn't have to go back either. The next morning, I unplugged the Wi-Fi, cleared the browser history. Packed both duffel bags again just in case. I didn't know where I'd go next, but I knew I might have to leave. I was brushing my teeth when I saw it. A silver Toyota, South Carolina plates. Crawling past the library like a hunter pretending not to stalk its prey. I knew that car, I knew that posture. It was Thomas, my eldest, still trying to earn a gold star, still pretending the past hadn't happened. He parked. Stepped out wearing a cardigan and holding a takeout coffee like we were meeting for brunch instead of reckoning. He stood by the entrance for 5 full minutes. I watched from behind the stacks, unseen. Finally, I stepped outside. He turned, eyes widening like he'd seen a ghost. "Eliza," he said softly, "please don't walk away." That name tasted like ash. He tried again. "Mom." His voice cracked on that word. And for a second I felt that old urge rise up, the need to comfort, to protect, to mother. But I didn't move. "You're not a ghost," he said. "You're not done. You can come home." I looked him in the eye. I already did the funeral, I said. You just weren't there. He flinched, he tried to speak, but nothing came. I didn't die, I whispered. But I stopped living the moment you left me in that hospital bed. His eyes filled, not performative, not strategic. Just quiet, raw grief. We didn't know, he murmured. We thought we were helping. I laughed, a short, sharp sound. You thought I wouldn't survive, that's what you thought, so you started erasing me before I could wake up. He nodded, tears falling now. He didn't argue, he didn't deny it. I found a better life, I said, a life where no one pretends love means control. He tried to reach for me, a hug, a connection. I stepped back. Don't, I said, that part of me. You already buried. I turned and walked away, not fast, not dramatic, just far enough to let him know this wasn't anger, it was closure. 3 days later, a plain manila envelope arrived in the library return slot. No name. No address, just one word written in a hand I recognized instantly. Nora. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit. I stared at it for 2 nights while drinking tea and trying to convince myself it didn't matter. When I finally opened it, I found a letter, not from Thomas, from me. It was the letter I'd written in the ICU, scrawled on the back of an intake form, just in case I didn't make it. If I don't wake up, just know I forgave you already. But if I do, please come. I'm scared. They must have found it while digging through the house. He'd read it. And now it was back in my hands like a ghost from the moment I nearly left this world. I read the letter only once, then again, then a third time. Each word felt like a memory pressing its weight into my chest. I remembered writing it, shaky and slow, in a bed I wasn't sure I'd ever leave. I remembered begging the nurse to give it to someone, anyone, and I remembered the moment I realized no one had come to collect it. I had written it for them, for the daughters I raised, for the family I thought still cared. Now it was back in my hands. Folded, returned, and suddenly everything was real again. The next day, an email came through the library inbox. Subject, just once, no greeting, no sign-off. It was from Kiera. She'd found me. I'd like to come just once. No Sean. No cameras, just me. I stared at the screen for a long time, unsure whether I felt anger, fear, or something heavier. I replied, one visit, that's it. Bring the letter with you. I didn't know what I hoped to gain, maybe nothing. Maybe I just wanted to see her realize I was no longer the fragile woman they had underestimated. Maybe I needed her to see that I had found something she never gave me, peace. She arrived on a gray Saturday morning. Dressed like she was going to church, white blouse, slacks, heels too high for gravel. Her makeup was soft, purposeful, like she wanted to look humble. We met at the cemetery, the one on the edge of town past the church and the old mill. I was already there, sitting on a bench beside Frank's headstone. I hadn't visited often, it was too painful. But today I needed the silence he always gave me. She walked up slowly, clutching a tote bag like a shield. No hello. No excuses. She simply handed me the envelope and sat down a few feet away, leaving space between us like she feared being hit. I opened the envelope. Inside was the ICU letter again, my letter. But now it was covered in handwriting. Her handwriting, blue ink, margin notes. Responses scribbled beside each line I'd written when I thought I was dying. We didn't know it was that serious. I thought Thomas would go, I'm sorry, Mom. I was scared. She didn't speak for a long time, just stared at her hands. I didn't know how to deal with watching you get weak, she finally whispered. I let the silence hang until it felt like the sky might crack open. Then I spoke. I didn't need you to be strong, I said. I needed you to show up. She nodded, her shoulders shook. You think I don't hate myself? She asked. You think I sleep at night? I turned toward her. I think you sleep better than I did, wondering why my daughters couldn't be bothered to hold my hand while I bled into a hospital bed. She broke then, not pretty, not controlled. She cried into her sleeve like a child. Embarrassed and messy, like she was trying to muffle the sound so Frank wouldn't hear. We were selfish, she said through tears. We thought we had time. I looked at the stone and said, so did he. I didn't forgive her, not out loud. Not even inside, but I didn't scream, I didn't walk away either, I just told the truth. You made a choice, you and Thomas, you chose not to be there, you don't get to rewrite that now just because people saw what it looked like. She asked if she could visit again. I said no. She asked if she could send letters. I said she could send them to Grace's P.O. box, but I wouldn't promise to read them. When we stood to leave, she reached out, arms wide for a hug. I stepped back, not cruel, just clear. That part of me, I said, you already buried. And this time, I chose the funeral. The next morning, I sat at the little table in my trailer and pulled out a fresh sheet of notebook paper. The same notebook where I tracked fake names and bank passwords. The one I kept under my pillow during those first nights in Elkport when I was still afraid someone might knock and say, "We know who you are." I wrote one last letter. Not to them, to myself. You did it. I wrote it in big block letters across the top. You got out. I listed everything I had left behind. A cold house, a forgotten name, a family who thought blood guaranteed loyalty. Then I listed what I had found: quiet mornings, real conversations, a child's laughter that didn't come with conditions, and a woman named Grace who saw me for who I was, not what I once gave. I folded the letter, slid it into a shoebox under my bed, alongside Lily's drawings, and the only photo I kept of my children taken before they knew what the word inheritance meant. That afternoon, I helped Grace trim the hedges outside her porch. Lily came running from the yard, holding up a chipped seashell. "Nana, look what I found." I smiled. "Perfect," I said. "Let's go build something with it." We sat on the sand, stacking shells and laughing, not because everything was healed, but because I finally understood something I had never been told. You don't have to heal to feel whole. You just have to leave the places where you were broken. Spring in Elkport is soft. It doesn't come in all at once. It sneaks into your bones slowly, like warmth returning after a long illness. The trees bud, the mornings smell like damp earth, and the sea wind starts to carry the promise of green things. That's when I knew I wasn't leaving. I wasn't running anymore. I had run once from betrayal, from grief, from the unbearable echo of being unchosen. But now I was standing still, not hiding, just being. In Elkport, no one cared who I used to be. No one whispered, "Did you hear?" behind their hands. They saw me as I was, a quiet woman who shelved books and brought cupcakes to school events and helped the local waitress with babysitting. I wasn't anyone's burden here. I wasn't anyone's failure. I was just Nora, and that was enough. The letter from Kiera was the last I received. No follow-up, no second visit, just silence which felt almost like respect. I didn't check the news anymore. I didn't care if my name trended again or if someone on the internet turned me into a symbol. The story they told about me now, it didn't belong to me. That narrative was theirs to spin and the world's to digest. But here, in this quiet town, I got to choose the ending. And I chose this: peace. Grace started calling me Mama Nora when talking to her coworkers. Lily kept Nana Nora, of course. It was hers now, woven into her drawings and her bedtime stories. We built routines. Fridays were library days. Saturdays we cleaned the trailer. Sundays we drove out to the farmer's market just to look at flowers and pet the neighbor's dog. Nothing dramatic, nothing painful, just life. One day while sweeping the porch, Grace asked, "Do you miss them?" I paused, then said, "No, I miss who I thought they were." She nodded like she understood that difference perfectly. Summer came. Lily finished second grade. I helped her learn multiplication by using buttons and pennies. She brought home a certificate that said "most kind-hearted." I cried when I saw it, not because I was proud of her, though I was, but because I realized she'd never seen me angry, bitter, or broken. To her, I was just safe. The thought of that brought me more comfort than anything I'd built in my old life. One morning, I found another letter at the P.O. box. It wasn't signed. Inside was a single photo. A new one, Kiera and Thomas standing on the front steps of a building with a banner that read Elder Support Coalition. There was no message, no plea, just the photo. I didn't frame it. I didn't write back, but I didn't throw it away either. I placed it in the same box with my ICU letter, my first Nora grocery receipt, and the note Lily once wrote in crayon that said, "I'm glad you came here." Because even if I didn't want them in my life again, I wanted to remember that people could try. And sometimes that's enough. Years passed. The town stayed small. Lily grew taller. Grace found love again with a shy mechanic named Rob who fixed cars and built birdhouses in his spare time. They moved in together just up the hill. But Lily still came over most afternoons. "Nana," she'd say, "can we walk to the rocks?" And we would, every time. One fall afternoon, I sat on the porch watching the tide roll in. The air was crisp, the seagrass golden. Grace brought me tea. "You ever think about writing your story?" she asked. I shook my head. "It's not a story," I said. "It's just something that happened." "But it saved you." I nodded slowly. "Yes," I said. "But more than that, it freed me." I didn't leave Charleston because I hated them. I left because I couldn't unknow what I'd learned, that I was disposable to the people I had built my life around, that they would have rather gone to Maui than sit beside my bed, that they thought boundaries meant silencing me, not protecting me, so I made a choice to stop asking for space in a life that no longer had room for me, and to build a new one in a place where I fit by simply existing. My name is Eliza Halloway, but you can call me Nora, because that's the name I gave myself when I stopped waiting to be chosen and chose myself instead. I am not a ghost, I am not a martyr, I am not someone's regretful memory. I am a woman who rose, who left the ashes and walked barefoot into something better. And if you're reading this, if you've ever wondered if it's too late to begin again, I promise you, it's not. Not if you're willing to walk away from what's breaking you. Not if you're brave enough to believe that peace is a place you can find, even if you have to name it yourself. So build something with the broken pieces. Stack them like seashells. Shape them into a new life, and when someone finally asks who you are, smile and say, I choose the ending this time. To anyone out there listening, you don't have to be who they say you are. You don't have to stay where they forgot how to love you, and you don't have to wait for an invitation to save your own life. The door is open, walk through it.